Education's the hardest it's ever been at the moment, but it's the best job ever. And it is a privilege to walk into a setting every single day, to be able to, feel that you're actually making a difference, that you're changing lives. We don't need to raise their aspirations. We just need to make them believe that what they do dream is possible. We just try and make the whole place a learning culture, and I start that off myself by saying, I've been in the profession now for 17, 18 years, and I'm learning something new every single day. Rather than trying to scare people away from technology, let's embrace the technology and let's show the children how to be safe with it and how that kind of impacts on their futures. I can't get people to buy into me if they can't see me. They can't follow what they can't see. Nothing's going to ever change or improve unless you're doing it. I want to create people who genuinely want to go out and kind of shape this world, shape the communities we're in, and build new paths for themselves. All behavior is a communication of that child being uncomfortable and not happy about something. Teaching is not a job. It's not something that you just turn up and you do. It's an occupation. It's the way you live your life.
Hello, welcome back. That was Jonathan Arthur, and he's the executive head teacher of Badock's Wood Academy, and he talks about the wonderful work he's doing within that school and indeed across the Multi-Academy Trust. A child-centred idea of education is so important to us here in the podcast, and Jonathan really takes us into what that's like from a professional standpoint, an environmental standpoint for the children, the community at large. It really is a wonderful insight, I think, into exactly how so many schools are working and trying to establish a great environment for our children. I must say a great thank you to the National Association for Primary Education for their support and sponsorship of this show. Without them, we wouldn't be able to bring you such great conversations. So I really hope you get inspired by this, my conversation with Jonathan Arthur. Hi, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Education on Fire podcast. It's great to chat to someone who's in school every day, someone who's literally on the coalface, so to speak, because to get that sort of insider knowledge from those of us who work in and around education, but not in that same capacity, is going to be fascinating for me. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Marcus. It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you today.
So take us into exactly what your role is within the school, in the academy, and maybe a takeaway of exactly how inspirational it is to be a head teacher and what you can bring to the life of the pupils that you're supporting.
I mean, I do a lot of talks with university pupils and students and trainees getting ready to take that next step into becoming a teacher, and I will openly say to them, education's the hardest it's ever been at the moment, but it's the best job ever. Mm-hmm. And it is a privilege to walk into a setting every single day, to be able to, feel that you're actually making a difference, that you're changing lives, that you're able to, put a piece together that was missing for a particular child or a particular family. It's a position that we shouldn't take for granted. And I think whilst it's difficult, I think all the best things in life are. So ultimately, absolutely love coming to work. I love meeting with the children every day. My role at the moment is I'm an executive head teacher across two schools, one in the south of Bristol, Badock's Wood enact Academy in Southmead, and then I've got another school Badock's in the north of Bristol, and then in the south of Bristol I've got Ilminster Avenue in Knoll West. So my role's changed a little bit recently. So what it should be is a little bit more strategic, a bit more removed from the day-to-day front face like you were talking about in your introduction. But I can't help myself. I'm very much the kind of person that my role is to support children, support the teachers and the parents whilst I'm in. I can do the bureaucratic side, the strategic side outside of the working hours. So very much like to remain on that shop front like you described it, like to be the person who's modeling expectations, who is kind of being that vision that I've got for the school and enabling that so that all the staff can, there's something tangible for them to hold on to when they're working, when I'm not just saying a load of words in a briefing or in a meeting. It's a tangible thing that they can see. They can, see me live every day. So, like I said, it's an absolute privilege. It's challenging at the moment, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love that. I think the whole idea, like say, of the modelling being involved, being part and parcel of the community is so incredibly important. And the Bristol thing really strikes me. It's something close to my heart. I'm originally from just outside of Bristol, so some of those places you were mentioning is where I used to go in to do rehearsals for my music, for bands, orchestras, those sorts of things. So it's great to chat to somebody who's sort of still
Yeah.
involved in that part of the world.
I mean, the communities are something really, really special, and it's I think you hit the nail on the head, really, Mark. You know, we're not just an education facility. We're not just somewhere where children are going to come in and get knowledge and move on. We need to be a hub. We need to be a central force for that whole area. Really, we need to be a spokesperson. Somebody who's going to fight a pillar for the people who live there, because economically, socially, things are really challenging for the communities at the moment. And lots more is being put on schools, but we've never had more power to help than we have right now. And I think, like you said, the communities that we work in are, they're absolutely amazing places, but they've got challenges, which is what we've kind of within enact we've built a kind of reputation on, is going into some of the most deprived areas and being able to go in there and give some real support and real help and try and make a difference. Because I really hate this notion that you go to a place like Knoll West, or you go to a place like Southmead, and they don't have aspirations to kind of go and be something. You keep getting this phrase churned around in education at the moment around raising aspiration. We don't need to raise their aspirations. We just need to make them believe that what they do dream is possible, and try and get them. So, the message that we do to staff all the time is, if they come in with a dream, whether it's a sports person, whether it's to be a superhero, whether it's to be an astronaut in reception, our job is to make sure that dream's still alive. It might have changed a little bit, but that it's still alive by the time they leave us. So, we can't do that alone. We have to work with the community to do that.
And where did your sort of passion for learning, education, sort of be involved in teaching come from? Was it something that you had from an early age? Is it something you kind of sort of found yourself sort of developing into? What's that journey look like?
Yeah, I think I was always a bit worried about what I was going to do, actually. I think my parents were as well at a point. They were thinking, I didn't really commit to anything particularly, but I got a teacher in secondary school who just turned a really challenging subject on its head for me, and it made me see. And I had such admiration for this person, because he wasn't just a teacher. He came out and he really supported like the wider person that I was, and helped me socially and things like that. And I just thought, wow, it must feel amazing for that teacher to feel, if he knew how much I respected him and how much I appreciated his time and effort. I just thought that must be a really amazing feeling. So I thought, I kind of went away and said, oh, that'd be great if I could do that, if I could inspire somebody in the same way, if I could go on and give somebody who's finding education or finding life a bit tougher another chance. And so it kind of went from there. My parents jumped on it really. As soon as I said, mentioned the word teacher, they thought, oh, brilliant. I was the first one in my family to go to university, first one to, go on and kind of tread that path, come from a very working class family. So I think as soon as I said that I wanted to do something like that and go to university, they were like, that's it, get him on there. So everybody we met then, it was like, oh, John wants to be a teacher, he's going to do this. And it kind of just kept going. And I've just, whether it's because I'm immature or not, Mark, I don't know, but I've always really, found a way to relate to children and be able to get on really well with them, and seem to, understand some of the kind of the more intricacies, I guess, around, why they do what they do, and, giving them opportunities to be the best they can be. So that's kind of where it came from, and it never looked back.
And I can really identify with that. Some of the really inspirational teachers that I remember were ones that were integral to my learning. So, as a musician, it was my music teachers. There was so much fun, there was so much opportunity, so much activity going on, but at the same time, they had the nuance of, where's the line, making sure that we were doing the best we could, having the respect, but also friendly is probably not the right word, but the human to human contact in the most respectful way, in terms of staff and pupil was there. And it's very hard to identify what that is, other than just, I think, a real joy from the people that were doing it, and us really sort of reveling in that, and therefore wanting to sort of reciprocate it back from our point of view.
I think that's it. I mean, when I first got into teaching, there were teachers there that, like, I'm a teacher, so you should automatically respect me. And I think gone are those days now. The children have got access to information and technology that we never had. And so gaining the respect when they can go and see people on the TV earning millions of pounds and doing, all these different roles, I think is really challenging. So I love the words you use there, that they're two of our school values across the school, kind and respect. And I think respect is earned both ways. And we need to prove that, that we can earn those children's respect. But I think that nuance you're talking about is, you can't teach teachers. I've had some amazing teachers come through my schools in the past, decade or so, brilliant teachers. But the one thing you can't teach them is to care. And I think the thing that made the difference for me, and I think what you were like alluding to there, and the nuances were that you can have a really good teacher who knows the subject brilliantly, who can go through a lesson, who can take you from A to B, and you get there and you're like, yeah, okay, I've really got that now. But there's a different kind of teacher that can do that, and they've got that genuine passion, that genuine care. They genuinely want to give you more. They genuinely want to, help to make you the best person you can be, not just fill you full of the knowledge, which is incredibly useful for obviously moving on in life, but they genuinely have a care about making you the best possible person. And I think that's the difference. And that's something that, when we're going through recruitment, when we're doing things like that, you're not necessarily looking for the person who's going to come in and teach the best lesson. You're looking for the relationship, aren't you? You're looking for, can that person inspire? Can they, go and convince that child, go and, build a relationship with that child so that they feel that school is somewhere they want to be, and a place that they enjoy, rather than, somewhere that they dread coming.
And I don't know if this is a good analogy, but I often think of schools and sort of educational establishments sometimes a bit like football teams, because I've seen schools that have gradually grown. Maybe a new head comes in, like say the recruitment starts to change, the ideas of what they're trying to do, the community builds, the enthusiasm for what everyone's trying to do pulls together, and it kind of lifts it above and beyond, like say, the individual people that are there. In the same way, it can go and disappear overnight almost when that thing happens as well. So is that kind of your experience as well? There's definitely a growth sort of hockey stick kind of feel to sort of bringing that ethos in, like say, not because it's not about good teaching or the quality of what's going on, but there's kind of a joint energy or method or understanding which kind of sort of brings everybody together for the greater good, if not for a better word.
Yeah, I think it's massively about that, Mark. I think I've made a career over the last 8-9 years where I've not stayed in one school longer than 2 years. So you go into a school, and that first year is all about creating the vision, building the culture, and like we talked about earlier, making sure that you're living that culture. There's no point saying, oh yeah, we've got a culture of being really respectful and being really kind, and then locking yourself away in an office all day, or every time you get the opportunity to speak to a child, kind of being like, no, I don't have time, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, or taking a certain approach. So it's about, I think the thing that I've found that works the best with culture, and it's certainly it builds and it builds and it grows, is you've got to believe it yourself, and you've got to do it, and you've got to be seen even on your worst day when you're tired and you're exhausted, or you've had a really challenging conversation. You never let it drop. You're always that person, because if it's not an act and it's something which is natural, then it doesn't need to be something that takes a lot of effort. And I think obviously then to build that culture and create that kind of atmosphere where you said, like, the building, the setting is greater than the sum of its parts, is making sure that you've got those like-minded people around you. There's no point in you going and saying we're going to do this and we're going to do that if you've got a member of staff, whether it be a caretaker, whether it be a cleaner, whether it be a member of your SMSA team at lunchtime, whether they're not buying in. So you've got to sell that vision, and you've got to give the rationale as to why. What are we doing it for? We all went to school, we all went to education, we all came out of it with different experiences, things that we liked, things that we didn't, but we're all here to make a difference. We all want to give the children an amazing experience. We want them to come away better than when they joined us. And so, that's the rationale, isn't it? Ultimately, when I sit down and I talk with my teams, it's about, why are we here? Let's just break it back down to those simple facts, those simple points. What are we here to do? We're here to inspire, we're here to kind of change lives. We're here to go and, give those children the tools that they need to go and be successful in modern Britain, which is changing beyond, we're preparing the children for a world that we don't know what it looks like yet, because we don't know, and things are changing so much in 3 or 4 years time. We don't know what it's going to be. So, and once you get that, there's this almost, it's this ambience, this kind of aura that happens within a setting then, that you kind of walk around and it's effortless, and things just happen because that's what people do, and that's what the systems in place do. And certainly in Badocks at the moment, because although I'm working across 2 schools at the moment, when you walk into Badocks, the first thing people say is that it feels like a really, really special place to be. It's completely, it's a throwaway comment nowadays, but it's child-centered. Everything that we do is with the child in mind. The way that we talk to the children, we started off having to be quite specific with scripts and things like that we want, but now it's a setting where you walk in and the children have a voice, and they're respected, and there are boundaries because there have to be, and they're consistent, and they're firm, but there's care and there is love in the building as well. And we talk about ourselves as a family, as a very big and dysfunctional family, but a family nonetheless. And we talk about how families are all different, and that we all think different things, but ultimately that's what makes us special. So we've kind of stopped almost talking about ourselves as a community, and more about, we're part of the Badocks family now. And you get that feel when you walk through, and all the staff have kind of, through 4 years of recruitment now, like everyone we add is only going to, add to that kind of, that picture that we've got. They're going to add to the kind of, the feel of the school. They're not going to be somebody that we're going to have to do lots of work around, oh, we need you to feel like this, because it's really hard to teach somebody to have that kind of, that inert care inside of them. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that strike me there. The idea of a feel of a school, I think everyone can identify with, because if you've had children starting school or changing schools, and you go and walk around, there are certain schools where you go, yeah, I completely love this place, or this was great, but I'm not quite sure what it was. And like I say, it's a million little pieces that actually form the overall feel of it. And sometimes it can be, unless you're very, very sort of sensitive to what these things are, you can't necessarily pinpoint what any one of those things happens to be. But it's a combination of all of those things, like I say, that comes across as part of that family. I think that's a beautiful way of being able to do it, because it kind of really gives you that sense. So I think everyone can really understand what that is and the essence of that. And my second point was going to be related to sort of how teachers support each other and how you kind of bring all that together. But I guess in lots of ways you sort of answered it by, like, saying, if you've got systems in place, you're having these conversations, everyone's on the same page. But then once that starts to take shape, then it then just morphs and grows. It's not a question of changing anybody when you get, like, say you have the recruitment or whatever, because they're going to naturally walk in and feel what that's like, and they're going to adapt to it in a very positive way.
Yeah, and I think what we've done, positives and negatives to it, but what we've done is we're very invested in, like I said to you at the start, around, supporting trainees from universities. So what we do a lot with our recruitment is that, we pick people who've been with us for a period of time, who know our values, who know our culture, who we've seen kind of really embrace that. They go the extra mile. And then, when somebody leaves, we just slot somebody else in who knows us. So very rarely at the moment are we recruiting from, outside, where, somebody's coming in completely new and going, oh, right, you do that. Oh, right, you do that this way. But I think the greatest thing around like you said, about that feel is that, initially, like we talked about, it is about walking the walk, and it's about, making sure that you're modeling that and you're living that. And in terms of that collaboration, as teachers, we can be quite sensitive when people walk into our classrooms, and this notion of observation, this notion of kind of CPD and professional development can often be a bit of a challenging concept for us sometimes, because you put so much of yourself into a classroom, and it's so much of you in terms of the way you lay it out and the way you deliver, that sometimes it can become quite a challenging thing if you're getting observed once a term, and then you're getting that feedback and you're thinking, so like I said, I don't take an approach of being in an office or timetabling once a term, right, I'm going to go and I'm sitting in your room for half an hour. We just try and make the whole place a learning culture, and I start that off myself by saying, I've been in the profession now for 17, 18 years. I'm learning something new every single day. And I'm learning it from the trainees walking straight out of university. I'm learning it from the ECTs who are in their first year. Everybody brings something different to the family, to the community. And if you can't be that person who can open yourself up to it and go, wow, if I didn't never saw it from that point of view, that's going to make me a better practitioner. It's going to make me more of an effective leader, because I'm going to be exposed to broader opportunities and broader experiences. And I think by not staying in an office or being secluded and being able to walk around and being able to, pop into classes, have that kind of instantaneous coaching, have those conversations, but not phrase them as if you were doing this really poorly, like we're doing now, having it as a conversation, going, oh, I'm really interested. Why did you choose to do it that way? Why is that like that? And then just have a conversation about it and coach and model, because I think we've got into this habit, and I think it's time within education where, observations now are very much a come in. I'm going to sit as the senior member of staff. I'm going to come in. I'm going to tell you all the things I don't think you were doing too well, and then I'm not going to tell you how to do them different. I'm just going to say, right, you need to improve that. But if I didn't know I was doing it in the first place, I wouldn't be knowingly making decisions to kind of take away from the educational side of things. So I think what I try to do, and what all of my leaders do through kind of working alongside, is, we're just very conversational about what we do. We drop in quite regularly. We make it a very uninvasive process. We talk about little things. We talk about, polishing little things at a time rather than going in and giving everybody, 10 things to work on. And then through that collaboration, that conversation, that coaching, things just start to happen. You get that trust, don't you? And I think, that's part of the feeling that you were talking about when you go into a school, is that when every member of staff is completely at ease with what happens within the school, everything is transparent. They're not worried about what's going to happen next, or I've got this coming up, because it's just, the environment is one where it's supportive, and what's coming, and it's, that even if you have a bad lesson or something doesn't go right, that it's going to be a conversation and that somebody's going to be there to support and coach rather than kick you when you're down. It just builds that real culture and that climate of, well, this is a place where you can come and you can grow. And I think that's what we expect the children to do. We expect them to put themselves, in situations where they're uncomfortable, outside their comfort zone. We expect them to challenge themselves, test themselves on things they don't know. And yet, as teachers, I think sometimes we're really reluctant to do that ourselves within our own day-to-day lives. So, by creating that culture and having teachers who are willing to take risks and put themselves out there, that feeds through then to the children, and you get this amazing culture where it's a learning culture, it's a learning climate, and you generally are there then, all of you, for the same purpose, and you're all modeling that to each other.
So there'll be loads of people listening going, that sounds amazing. And we often talk on the show about the silver bullet that changes certain parts of education for the better, and how that can be. But you're working in the same education system as maybe the people who are thinking, but that's not the way observation works for me, or it's not the way that I'm finding my sort of continual professional development working, or whatever. So it's obviously not a system error, as it were. It's more like, say, it's an approach, it's an understanding, and a way of communicating. So how is it that you've been able to bring this in and support that, where other people will be thinking, but I've never experienced that before? Is it kind of the way you've liked to do it, what you understand works? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and I've been asked quite a few times when people come in, and it's you're looking for that one magic answer in terms of what's going to make this work. And I don't want to disappoint all of your listeners, but I don't have that answer. If I did, I think I'd probably be rich right now, because I'd be able to sell it to everybody and go, this is what you need to do. I think the thing that I would say that, that's worked for me, and I think every leader's got to find it themselves, which is probably not the most helpful for you, Mark, in terms of, but I discovered really, really quickly, I was on a course once, and they said, once you're ready to be a leader, once you're ready to be, you'll start to get your own ideas about what you value, about where your moral compass is. And I ask my leaders, whenever we're doing the coaching, when they first join the leadership team, is what three characteristics, or what three things do you want to be known as a leader by the people that work for you? And I've got the three things which are really, really important to me. But once you've found that, and once you've got that, it's about making sure that every decision that you make is centered around those values, and that, you might work in different organizations, you might work with different people, you might have different strategies, your trusts or your independent school might do things in a different way, but it's about sticking true to the beliefs that you've got around education and making sure that even when it's really difficult, staying true to who you are. And I think integrity and for me is a big one in education. And I think what I try to do is make sure that, you know, I don't change direction like the wind. That's not going to be an arrogant statement either, to say that I'm not willing to bend into way to see things moving forward. But I have a set of principles in the way that I believe education should be, and I'm very, very passionate about that. And I make sure that all the decisions I make in the way that I lead the school on a day-to-day basis is done through those lenses, and making sure that even if people don't get on with me, or they don't agree with me, or they don't like what I do, that ultimately they can come back and say, well, yeah, actually, those three things are things that you can't question about the way that I lead the school. And I think it's also about, I'm one of those people that I'm never satisfied. I'm always looking at, yeah, okay, it's good, but what can we do moving forward? How can we make it better? And I like to include my leaders in that. I like to empower them to be part of the decision-making process. Again, I think when you're talking about effective schools, it's not where you've got one person in a room who's making all the ideas and thinking of all the decisions. It's about bringing the expertise in when you need it, you know, acknowledging where there are people with certain skill sets and communicating your idea. No idea, no grand plan was ever delivered with one person in isolation. You know, all the greatest thinkers across the last, you know, couple of decades have been people that they might have an idea, but then they go to different places to grow that idea. And I think making sure that, you know, there's a collaboration, that there's a joint approach to the work that we do. We're trying to be on the forefront with technology. We're trying to be on the forefront with kind of being on the cusp. So a couple of years ago, before we were inspected, we really focused around, I felt like all of our curriculum work was really, really good. We were developing a really inspirational curriculum, but I was missing the why. Why were we doing it? And we went back to, even though we're only a primary setting, we wanted to inspire people with, I wanted children to leave us going into secondary ready to know what kind of careers to go through. So we started to build a careers curriculum in Badock. And then when we were inspected, it was one of the highlights of the inspection. You know, they kept going back to the fact that we're preparing children at such an early stage, and that we're giving them really hands-on, tangible kind of experiences of different careers that could be used, and we're making sure that each piece of learning's got a purpose. So we did that, and then we started to look at, you know, speech and language in the school was something that was a bit of a focus. So we went and looked at oracy, and we started to really explore oracy, and my head of school managed to get us the Oracy Centre of Excellence thing award within about 9 months, which was incredible. And now we're an incubator school for Microsoft, because now we're looking at, right, well, rather than trying to scare people away from technology, let's embrace the technology and let's show the children how to be safe with it and how that kind of impacts on their future. So I think rather than there being one specific thing that I can go back to and go, oh, this is what makes that work, I think it's about having that ability to constantly reflect in a setting, an environment where time is so precious. Having time to reflect with your team is really challenging. And I think, you know, not that it's a great health warning, but because I spend a lot of the time in the day kind of working with the team, I'm able to do that, and I'm able to be that. But what that then means is that, you know, I do a lot of work at home, because I kind of want to be with the team. I want to be with the teachers. I want to be coaching. I want to be doing that. So that's the way I do it. That's the way I combat the lack of capacity, the kind of funding challenges that schools have got, is that I make sure I'm very, very visible as a leader. I can't get people to buy into me if they can't see me. They can't buy into what they can't see. They can't follow what they can't see, you know, and I want to make sure that I'm not just flicking on a video from a website which says this is how you do it. I want to make sure that they're seeing people in the real world, in their school, with their children, with their challenges, with the characters doing it. So I think it's a lifestyle choice, and it's one that I've been happy to make for the last kind of 12 to 15 years, is to, you know, you sacrifice a bit of the work, you know, the time at home, and you kind of catch up on the emails and the more bureaucratic side. But on the day to day, I'm there on the shop floor with everybody else, and I'm contributing, and we're making sure that it's you know, every aspect of school improvement is something that we all take really seriously. It's not something that you've just got the SLT team that sit in an office every once a week and they kind of figure out the ideas. It's something that we all take ownership over.
I think for me, in the beginning of all of that, you said, you don't have the answer, as it were, or the one thing you can say. But I think the flip side of that is the most positive thing that to come out of it is the fact that the talking about having integrity, about having your ideas, about having two or three things which you're sort of hanging your hat on, which are the essence of everything that you do. And then your school, your family, community becomes the personalities of the people in it, and it grows in that particular way as well. And I think that's incredibly powerful because every school's different. Every school has a different community in terms of the makeup of their school, whether it's geographically or culturally or whatever that happens to be. And so it's so easy to get into that rut of I must get it right, or I must tick this box, or I must do that. And actually, if you can stand far enough back to go, look, this is what's important, this is why it's important, I'm able to demonstrate and model it like you talked about, then actually from there, it gives you the freedom, I think, to sort of, I don't know, relax into what it is that you're trying to support and lead and model in that way, which I think, from a mirroring point of view, is exactly what you want children to do, because you don't know their future, you don't know all of their background or how things are going to go and what their life's going to develop, but you want to give them the skills, the understanding and the freedom to grow into that. And I think there's a really sort of beautiful kind of 360 view there of what you're doing and wanting to put into place, which is then going to be so supportive for them as well. Like I say, even if it's not, this is what you need to do, let me write a book in one chapter kind of thing. But I think, like I say, it's not that straightforward, and it shouldn't be that straightforward. And that gives us the individuality within our schools and our communities to be able to really flourish.
Yeah, and that's it, Mark. I mean, I think, like I say, I mean, I don't, preach to kind of have all the answers within what we're doing, but like I said, we stay true to certain things, and it's not that we're not ambitious for our children. I regularly, have a dialogue where I talk to the children about, I know you're going to go on and do amazing things. We start to really narrate the positives for the children, for children who maybe don't hear that enough, or don't hear, oh, you could go on and do this, or you could be this, to go and narrate the positive for them is really important. And our curriculum is incredibly ambitious. We want the children to kind of reach a really high level of knowledge. But the most important thing to us, and the thing that we've kind of keep coming back to as a staff, is, yeah, but all that knowledge is great. But if they're not ready, like you said, if they're not able to go into these communities which provide them with challenges and put them in situations which are going to test them, and they can't come out of that, and they can't have the strength of character to make the right choices in those situations, or they can't, be strong enough to take the right path, then all of that knowledge is for nothing. So our we put a real focus on the personal development, and that's like, those, like you were talking about, those characteristics, those kind of those traits, that kind of real solid core to people. And we make sure that all the learning comes back to that in the end. What does the tale of Henry VIII in history, what does that tell us? What does the Great Fire of London tell us? What life lessons, what do we learn as people? How does that, shape us as people, so that all of these experiences, all of this knowledge we're giving children, yeah, it's going to be great, and it might get them into certain sets within secondary school, but ultimately we want them to be able to go out and question something. Oh yeah, go and do that for me. Yeah, but why? And be brave enough to kind of not just fall into the social norms, into the social stereotypes, and to ask questions, and to be brave enough to challenge us as teachers, even when we're saying something, okay, you've said that, sir, but how do you know that, or why? Challenge the norm, because nothing's going to ever change or improve unless you do. And I think it was Einstein, wasn't it, who said the definition of insanity is just doing the same thing over and over again. I don't want to create a load of robots. I want to create people who genuinely want to go out and kind of shape this world, shape the communities we're in, and build new paths for themselves, and don't just fall into a track that is going to take them down a route that has been trodden 100 times before them. So yeah, and like you said, Matt, I think we ask them to be brave, and I think it takes a brave leader to do that in education at the current time, and to get that balance right between that real approach on them as people, but then also still making sure that that's coming out in outcomes for them. Because it's all well and good me sitting here and saying, oh, we believe this, that, and the other, if at year 6 I'm sending 20% of children out at the expected standard ready for reading, writing, and maths. So it's got to be the balance. But I think every leader's got they've got the power, they've got the agency, they've got the autonomy to be able to lead in a way that they see benefits their communities the best. And like you said, academically, there's schemes that you can use, there's schemes of work, there's lots of different people telling you how to teach and how to do that. But I think a lot of leadership for me, and a lot of the way that a school feels and the way you get that those kind of outcomes and you create those places which really are just hubs for learning is around bringing it back to principles and bringing it back to kind of a few simple things and what you want those children to be, and then you build from there.
And I guess the combination of all these things that we've spoken about sort of feeds into the attitude of the children and the behaviour and all the things that go with that. Do you just find that all of the sum of all of that just means that you're in a position to kind of offer this opportunity feel within it, which then affects the overall feeling of what the children, how they behave, what they want to do, their engagement? And you mentioned it early on about having boundaries and all of those sorts of things, which are obviously incredibly important. But I would imagine that having this sense of growth and wanting to be involved in engagement means that actually some of the behaviour that maybe some schools have to deal with isn't necessarily something that you see as often.
Yeah, and I mean, Badock's, when I first went to Badock's, the behaviour there was incredibly challenging, and then obviously coming to Ilminster a couple of years ago, the behaviour has been a challenge there for a couple of years as well. And the one thing I would say about that is I completely agree, and I think that the processes that we go through definitely mean that Badock's went from behavior that was really, really challenging, and now you walk in and it's you barely notice that it was an issue a couple of years ago. But it takes time. Like I think education is a kind of a sector at the moment where everyone's dead set on quick wins, and I want a quick result to that, and I need to get that done, and we need to get that done within the next few weeks. And you can't do that with behavior, because behavior is about relationships. And like with an adult, if I meet somebody for the first time, I'm not going to suddenly go, oh, do you know what? I trust you to be really open and honest with you. I'm going to go in and let myself be open to you, and I'll let you be able to kind of guide me in that way. It doesn't happen. We don't do that as adults. We, as people, naturally, we have to build a relationship. And so the strategy that we put around, part of the culture is this, we're very much, we focus on zones of regulation for the children. We do a lot of emotion coaching, but we give them a voice and we listen to them, Mark. And we don't, it's really easy for me to see a child making the wrong decision and go straight over to them and go, do you know what? That's this. Now you're going to get this consequence. But what we do is, we put really firm boundaries in place, but we make sure there's a conversation, and we make sure the children understand where they're going wrong. And we make sure that the staff in the school know that, yeah, that child might have been a bit disrespectful at that point, but let's unpick why. Let's see what it was, because all behavior is a communication of that child being uncomfortable and not happy about something. And ultimately, if we shout at them or we lose our temper and we go, right, you're doing this, this, and this, we're not modeling to them that when you're feeling an emotion which is quite strong, we're not modeling how to deal with that. We're not showing them in a different way. And it's really hard, for teachers to remain emotionally regulated for a whole day. They're dealing with different things. But what you'll find when you come to Badock's, and what you'll find even more so now at Ilminster, is that once you build those relationships, the children can get, they can dysregulate. They can have a moment where they need a bit of support, but they just turn it around really quickly. And they don't reach that point where the behavior escalates to a point where they're kicking and screaming. Because they know that there's strategies and there's people they can go to, and they talk to them. And we talk all the time. We say, I'm a person. I get cross. I get annoyed. I get frustrated. I feel all the same emotions as you. And I label those to them so that they understand what they're feeling when they're feeling it. But then we say, it's fine to be annoyed. But it's not fine to do this, or it's not fine to do that. And so, yeah, I think people sometimes when they see me with with children that they've perceived to be, challenging, look up and they go, oh, well, they listen to you because you're the executive head, or they listen to you because you're the head teacher, or you listen to you because you're this. And I'm like, if you think for a second that that child gives any attention whatsoever to my job title, or the fact that I walk around wearing a suit, or that I get, I'm the head of the school, you are wrong. That doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is that I've given them time. And then what does that time mean? By talking to them and building that relationship, it's showing them that I care. And I then regularly, whenever I'm talking to children, just go, I'm not doing this to be horrible. I'm doing it because I care. And we bring it back to, again, 3 simple things. I'm having to talk to you because you're not being safe. And then when you get to that point, you've got the relationship, right? Talk to me. Was what you were doing being very safe right there? No. Okay, good. Right. What should you have been done? I should have done this. Right. Okay. So what do we need to do next time? Yeah, I need to do this. Okay, brilliant. So, right, take a minute then. And then what you're going to go and do? I'm going to go and do this. So, right, brilliant. Fantastic. Or, I don't ever give the children their consequences anymore. I'm not the person who goes in and goes, yeah, right, you're going to have to miss your lunchtime then. It's always right. Okay, what have we talked about with this? Yeah, I know. So I should have done this. Okay, right. So how are you going to make that right? What are you going to do to make that better? Well, I think I should probably give 10 minutes of my time. I agree. Let's go. Now you need to go back and prove to me that you go and, you're going to go turn it around. And I think turning it around is another really, really powerful concept that I think, if a child's got trauma, if they've got those experiences which don't give them the resilience or anything like that, if something goes wrong at 9 o'clock, that could be the day gone then. And you could be then having a situation where you're following that child around, or you're kind of, you're at a bit of a loss. Then they've got to know that there's something to salvage. They've got to know that all is not lost. And what we try and do, and again, it's a fine line, because a lot of, we have lots of discussions around, oh, you're praising the kids that are being the most challenging. No, we're not praising them for their challenging behavior. We're praising them more regularly for not showing the challenging behavior, and if that child only gets communicated to, or only gets attention from you, or only gets your focus when they're doing the wrong thing, then they're just going to keep doing the wrong thing, because at least then they feel like you're noticing them. Whereas if you start off by giving them small little things that, oh, I love the way you're doing that. Oh, I was thinking about you the other day, and how well you walked through the school, focusing on those positive aspects, then you can start to get them changing and wanting the attention for a positive way. And you have to give them something that they want to be successful with. You have to kind of be able to pick up on the things that they really like, by having those conversations. Oh, I know you really like football. I know you really like this TV program. I know you really like this. And you just build it in. Gone are the days where you've got this one size fits all system around relationships within a school, where you go, right, you've all got to conform to this, and if you don't, well, you're the issue. We very much take the thing like, if a child's really struggling in school, then we're not doing something right, and we need to go and adapt our provision. So you will constantly see staff at the end of the day having conversations around, oh, you got really frustrated with that today. What can we do? What was that? Let's unpick it. Let's see what that was. And then we adapt the process. We adapt the kind of the systems for that particular child. And so, when you come in, or if you come into Ilminster or Badock, you'll see so many different provisions going on at lunchtimes, or so many different things happening within the school day. But that's where we're just identifying that child really, really struggles with this particular scenario. Now, we can carry on trying to fight that. We can just push that child into the scenario and expect him to suddenly, or her to suddenly go, oh, actually, I'm all right with it now because you forced me to do it 7 times over. Or we can go, what are we getting from that? What is the child getting from that? What are we teaching that child? Is that, in life, there's something that you might openly say that you don't like, but we're just going to keep pushing you into it anyway. We, as adults, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't choose to do that. We wouldn't, and we would be, if somebody within work or within a kind of a personal context was continually putting us in situations which made us anxious or worried about something, we would just want to stay away from that person, or we want to distance ourselves from it. So it's about adapting and seeing that as the best thing for the greater good and for the child, and actually making sure that, well, if that child's not dysregulated and running around the school shouting, then that's better for everybody. And through all of that, making sure that the boundaries and the expectations are always the same, no matter whether it's an SMSA talking to them or whether it's myself. We're all talking to them in a similar way. So yeah, I think, if you do come into our schools, you'll see behavior. You'll see children that dysregulate, but what you'll see is how that really just, doesn't escalate into something huge, or doesn't escalate into to something uncontrollable, and how the children have got the tools and they've got the scripts and they've got the vocabulary to be able to communicate and bring themselves out the other side.
And I think for me, the fact that you're talking about it's a journey and there's time involved and there's relationship building in so many different ways is such a powerful thing, because like I say, it's not about tomorrow it's going to be better, it's about the next conversation is going to give us something that we can work on. And also the reason why I love having conversations with people in different settings is the fact that I can have this conversation with loads of people, but to have it with somebody who's literally doing it day in, day out, and you're seeing the benefits and we're able to share that with other people, I think is incredibly powerful, because it means that in your hardest day, that you're still making a difference, because like I say, over a number of days or weeks or whatever, it's going to change as it goes through, which I think is really incredible.
Yeah. And again, Mark, I think it comes back to that bravery thing, doesn't it, as well? I think, as school leaders, a lot of us are in situations where, you need to make rapid improvement, you need to make change, but it's got to be sustainable, hasn't it? You've got to be thinking, you can't be putting a plaster over everything and going, oh yeah, well, we've kind of addressed it. But I know that if that person isn't in, it's all going to fall apart. And I think, the best, the way that I know that, the leadership strategies that I've employed work is that if I walk out of that school, or I'm not in that school for a day because I'm in the other school, that I know that the behavior is not going to be any worse when I'm not there than it is when I'm there. And that's because, it's an approach, and it's a kind of belief system, rather than, oh yeah, we're all reliant on one behavior you monitor. And I think we do have to be brave and go, it takes time. And you're going to have days, and I still have them now, where you come away and you go, cool, that was a tricky one. And you can get lost in it, can't you? You can, when you're in it every day, you can be like, oh, well, that was that because that wasn't perfect, or that wasn't brilliant. But then I step back in, and an example, Mark, is today. We had 10 members of staff out today in the school that I'm in. We didn't have a single dysregulation all day. And if you went, and we've got less staff this year than we had last year, but if you go back last year, we had probably about 7 or 8 more staff, and we had everybody in. You'd have had a day where there was really challenging behavior there. And today we had different people covering different children. We had changes, which are always complex with children with high needs. And yet they manage those change because of that kind of continual journey, having those same conversations, being ready to sit down with that child who's calling you lots of names and being really, really unpleasant, and be able to go, I know you're not angry at me. I'm gonna be here. I still care about you. I'm still going to be the same with you tomorrow, but we're going to have the same conversation we had yesterday, because I know if I keep doing it, and if I keep talking to you about that we're going to start to turn that around, and that's what you see over time.
And is there one piece of advice you'd like to share, or even a piece of advice you might give your younger self, maybe as someone going through sort of the training as a teacher, or anything that you think would be valuable for people?
Yeah, I mean, I was a very I didn't have much self-belief when I was kind of in the training, and I was one of those people that would physically shake when I was being observed within university. So I think the thing that I would probably, the bit of advice I'd give to myself is to believe that you can make a difference. You don't have to be a certain way. There's so many different ways to inspire and to do things. There's not, you read all these books by these well-researched people and these theorists, and it's amazing. But you don't have to be those people to make it work. You have to find you within what you're doing. You have to find the thing that makes you, and the thing that kind of makes you the person and the teacher that you want to be. And once you have a think about that before you start, and try and make sure that you stick true to that, really, because there's going to be days where you question it. There's going to be days where you question yourself and what you're doing, and how you set out for it. But if you keep coming back to, no, I can do this. I believe this. I just, and reflect and improve and keep kind of asking yourself those questions, I think you can get there. In terms of one bit of advice for trainees coming into the role is probably one around probably around belief again, but believe you can make a difference, believe that you can want to make a difference. Don't just go in. Teaching's not a job. It's not something that you just turn up and you do. It's an occupation. It's the way you live your life. It's kind of it for anybody who's been in it long enough. It consumes you, and in a really positive way, and it kind of becomes everything. So I think, make sure it's what you want to do. Make sure that you're going in there knowing that you're passionate about what you do, and you're not going to allow somebody to say, oh, well, you're going into a school in that area, or good luck, or well, that's going to be this, or that's going to be that. Don't allow yourself to be swayed by these stereotypes or these biases that we've got, and believe that you can go into any setting and you can make a difference, as long as you stick true to what is the best thing for the children.
Amazing. And just as we start to wrap up, obviously the acronym FIRE is very important to us here at Education on Fire. By that we mean feedback, inspiration, resilience and empowerment. What's the one thing that strikes you when you see that, either one word or collectively?
As a collective, I think they're words that I live by. Like we've talked a lot about the feedback and constant feedback, that you can only improve through feedback that you get from other people. Inspire, that's the reason we're in the job, is to inspire and to make sure that the children believe they can go on and do these things. But like we've talked about, you have to be resilient, because it's tough and it's hard, and there's not a lot of funding around, and there's lots of challenges within education. So you've got to be ready to fight for what you believe in, and sometimes that's difficult. Sometimes doing the right thing is the hardest thing to do. And ultimately, we want to empower all those people. Like we want to empower those future teachers to go on and be the next generation of people who are going to go in, set education on fire and light the torch underneath the next, generation of children. So I think as a set of words, as a group of words, and as a podcast, I think it says everything that education needs to be.
Fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much for all those insights. It's been absolutely incredible. Is there one place you'd like people to go and visit to find out more about you, about the school?
You can go to either of the school websites and find out some more information, or certainly contact the offices in either school, which are on the school websites, and they can get hold of me if anybody wants to know anything else.
Fantastic. And we'll have links to those things on the show notes as well, so people can click through. So Jonathan, thank you so much indeed. I really appreciate it today.
Thanks, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire.